Hi, we're going to talk about listening today. Kind of what the point is, what's wrong with some of the ways that we do listen, and how to kind of improve those areas and be a better listener. What's the point of listening? Why should we work harder at listening? Why should we make an effort? Doesn't it come natural? I mean, we don't even have to do anything. We just can sit there and hear people. Well, listening and hearing, aren't exactly the same. So what we were going to try to do is figure out and look at why we listen and how to make that process more efficient. When we think back to as a baby, everything we learned was from listening combined with seeing. And that's how we grew. That's how we learned everything that we know to this point right now. So with that, listening allows us to gain knowledge, understanding, expand our capacity of mental aptitude, which allows us to contribute and add value to conversations, to negotiations, to conflict resolution. The more we know, the more effective that we can be, the more helpful we can be. What listening does is it enables us to create bridges that we weren't even aware of beforehand. Allows us to walk through conflict negotiations, and to help. It helps generate unity. It expedites problem solving, and it eliminates any unnecessary focus of our energies. When all we're doing is focusing on proving our point, and we're trying to do multiple things at once, trying to send an email, talk on the phone, talk to this person. We don't even realize how much stress and anxiety that really puts on us and on our bodies, and it's just like, it just allows us, when we can focus solely on that, to just relax and help. So how well do we really listen? Just because we put food in our mouth doesn't necessarily mean that it's in our stomachs and being digested. And it's the same thing with listening. We can hear something, sound waves can hit our eardrums, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our mind can digest it and understand exactly what is being communicated to us. So we really need to actively work at taking that information and putting it into our mind and developing an understanding on that. And it really isn't as easy as it sounds. There's a ton of distractions and barriers that come with trying to listen. Our minds just aren't like they're supercomputers, and they are constantly trying to fight us at focusing and listening, especially in today's world. So there's outside noises, there's things going on in our peripheral that can distract us, depending on where we're at, So we want to make sure that we keep in mind that we need to tone all that out and focus solely on what we're trying to learn, what we're trying to hear and understand, who we are trying to understand. Also ourselves, we are probably our biggest barrier to listening. We develop preconceived conclusions, judgments. Our attitudes are huge. We have prejudices that we allow to sneak in there and and take away from the what we're trying to hear. And self-focus, that's my biggest probably one of my biggest barriers, is just thinking about what I'm going to say next, how I'm going to respond to this person. Even before they finish what they're trying to say, I already have been focusing on a response, how I'm going to articulate that response, the tone of the response, all these things that aren't even by all points in reality yet. It doesn't. My response shouldn't even come to fruition until the other person fully gives me an opportunity to do that. So I really need to check myself and kind of get back into what the conversation is really about. So how do I do that? That's the key. That's where I struggled, and that's what I loved about learning throughout this process, was how do I listen better? And it starts with focusing, getting refocused, recentered, understanding where I'm at, what's going on, what is my mind telling me, and then allowing me to acknowledge that stuff and then put it down and become aware of my emotions and where I'm at. So when I go in and I'm talking to someone, that I can fully receive everything that they have to offer, and then I can understand that better, and I can respond. I don't have to worry about getting anxious or upset or angry, when I know that they are just trying, when I'm just there to understand. That's all I'm there to do. And that also allows me, throughout the course, should I decide to get angry, I can remember that I can just refocus and get back on track and remind myself, this is what I'm here to do, and I'm just here to listen and understand. I'm not here to judge, I'm not here to do anything like that. I'm just here to understand them. There's plenty of tactical techniques that we can utilize to really help combat our own attitudes and our own barriers that we create. Again, prepare your mind to understand what you're doing, where you're going, and why you're there in the first place. To know why you're there, that really helps you start and have a foundation to move forward with it, and not just kind of bounce around from internal thought to external thought to internal thought to, it allows us to be more grounded. Maintaining eye contact helps. That's a big one. And then being patient, that is key too. If we're there to listen, and we're there to give them our time and our ears and our understanding, then we need to wait. It's on them. We're just giving it to them to take the time they need to share the information that they want us to have. And if we're rushing them or rushing the process, that creates a barrier and doesn't allow it to happen. And practice. That's, this isn't something that comes natural to us in this day and age. We are constantly listening to respond. We're not listening to understand. So we really want to just keep at it. We want to be persistent. Small steps, we're going to fail, but we want to keep improving our listening conversations and our depth of understanding more and more and more, to where we can be a listener that everyone wants to talk to. Listening landmines, judging, assuming, being better than, stubbornness, cell phones, our internal thoughts, TVs. There's tons of ways that we can really sabotage our ability to listen and hear others. So we really want to make sure that we just leave those at the door. We don't even, it's a lot easier if we know we're not going to judge, then to have to worry about it midway through the conversation. So just set yourself up for that. Because listening is success. That's the key. Listening allows us to have more, because of the ways that there are to communicate today, there's so many more ways. And listening is still the number one method, the most effective. Congress is never going to use Twitter to pass a law. They're going to have to get together and they're going to have to talk and they're going to have to listen and they're going to have to walk through this. So we want to continue to sharpen this skill with ourselves, because those of us that can really utilize it and maximize it will be more valuable to our employers, to our friends, to our family, our neighbors. We'll be able to help others more effectively if we can listen. And even when we do have to talk, there are ways that we can use, that we can have a mindset of understanding and listening. So when we give our feedback or when we start out a conversation, say what you have to say, be brief and concise, and then end it with, what do you think? What are your thoughts? These are ways to talk to listen. Use any opportunity you talk as an opportunity to listen, because by listening we can continue to gain more information and have more understanding on any situation that we're in. And the one who has the most understanding is going to be the one in a negotiation who can create the most beneficial solution. And so we want to always take opportunities to listen, regardless of the situation. Because, when we listen and we take the spotlight off of us and we genuinely want to hear what they have to say, that spotlight on them ultimately creates, it illuminates the pathway to conflict resolution, to understanding, to trust. And these are the keys to unlock the doors of opportunities that we never imagined. So that's what we really want to aim to do each time, because the more we understand, the more we can help. And Zig Ziglar said you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. So how do we know what other people want? By listening.